Okay, so this is Kelly, and we've worked together. We did a few lessons like a year and a half ago, something like that. But this is a new horse to her that I have not seen before. So I have to remember I got my microphone here. So go ahead and tell us a little bit about your horse.
Okay, so this is Scooter. He is approximately 10 or 11 years old. His breed is unknown. It's up for anybody's guess. I did send his DNA off, and it came back as Andalusian and Lipizzan were the first two markers. So, for what that's worth. Right. But, yeah, he's just a grade gelding. He was pretty uneducated when I got him, and we've just been working on training level type walk, trot, circles, getting balanced. We've been trying to get the canter transition for about a year, and it's still a little rough and rocky. I don't know the reason necessarily. I don't think it's found this issue. I think he just learned how to trot real fast. And he's got a kind of a big trot, and I am not really good at sitting that to push him into that canter. So we kind of fight against each other a little bit. I'm not very helpful in that. It's sort of the bane of my riding.
Okay.
Other people seem to have not the issues that I do, but until the canter transition is more push button and automatic, that's where we are. We kind of have been stuck there for a little while.
Okay. So you already warmed him up here for a few minutes, but why don't you go ahead and move him around a little bit and show us, just maybe take 10 minutes or so and just show us what you're working on with him.
Yep. Our warm-up usually consists of serpentines, circles in the corner, walk, trot transitions.
Okay. And then maybe you can show us a transition up the canter? Give it a try?
Yeah.
Okay. Try. And then we're using a pivot to film. I'm just saying this for our record here for our video. We're using a pivot to film, so I'm going to stay by the middle of the arena so I can just keep an eye on it and make sure it's not getting lost. pretty good.
But that's pretty typical of our warm-up. And
Okay. Is he normally pretty kind of clumsy like that, or?
probably more so today because he's on his third day of being ridden.
Okay.
Not quite. The ring was drugged, too. I don't know if that has anything to do with it.
Usually you think that would make it better, having
Yeah,
a freshly drugged ring.
Better. Yeah.
I'm sorry, what did you say his name was?
Scooter.
Scooter, okay. All right. I can take him now if you're... Now, how is he with the whip? If you use the whip when you ask him to canter, do you get like a negative response from that?
If he has opinions sometimes, he
Okay.
will kick out.
Okay.
If you really,
Yeah.
After he kicks out, he usually listens pretty well.
Okay.
Because like he didn't get his way, you won.
Yeah.
So he's respectful.
Okay.
He just lets you know what he thinks about it.
Okay. Cool. So I'm going to do a little bit on the ground actually with him first, and then I'll go ahead and get on. Maybe we'll walk just a little closer. Good boy. All right. And his noseband is really nice and loose, so that's great.
I've since we've worked together, I've sort of kept him that way.
Awesome. Good boy. Yeah, no worries. Good. Good. Ooh. Good. Good. Good boy. Good. Good. Good boy. know. We might have to go from the other side, huh? Try one more time. Okay, let's try from the other side. Good. Good. Good job. All right. Good. 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 And walk. And walk. How long have you had him, did you say?
More than a year.
Okay. And walk. Good boy. Good. Nice stretch. Good. Walk. You're fine. Good. 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 Good boy. And trot. Good. And walk. Good. Walk. Good. Good. Oh, good boy. Good. Good. Good boy. Ooh. Good boy. Okay, I give him back to you. Even just turn him sideways a little bit, it's fine. Okay, so in Legerete, what we would like to do with him is really quite straightforward. I would love to do shoulder control with you. It would help you with so many things, and it would help you a lot with your canter.
Okay.
But not today. Okay. Now, if I get to come back a second time, we'll do shoulder control. Because he could really use it, and it would help you so much.
Yes.
I did some of it. I started with the shoulder control a little bit, and it would benefit you guys a lot. But
we do struggle.
Yeah.
The shoulder in the corner.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, definitely. But the main thing is that he tends to want to be behind the bit.
Mm-hmm.
He over-flexes a little bit, and then you get where the third vertebrae is the highest point instead of the pole.
Okay.
So, and he's not steady in the, he's not accepting the contact.
Right.
He's a little bit, I wouldn't say fear, but like shy of it,
mm-hmm.
right? He doesn't want to accept that contact with your hands.
Right.
He wants to go behind it so he can kind of evade it. And then when I insist to him, I'm like, no, sorry, you can't get away from me. I'm here. Then that's when you'd see some little tantrums where he'd like toss his head or do weird things because he's like, get away from me. Yeah. So if you can get him accepting the contact better, it's going to help you with everything else going forward. And I think that's probably the main reason why you feel like you've been stuck at training level.
Mm-hmm.
I think if you could get a little bit better balance, because his neck is like a leverage pole, right? Mm-hmm. So when his neck is too low and he's curling up here and his nose is behind the vertical and the third vertebrae is the highest point, it's putting a lot of weight on his shoulder. He's not using his hind end at all.
Okay.
And he certainly is built that he could have a lot of power from his hind end.
Okay.
We just have to kick it into gear, and get it, where that front end is lifting, and then the weight goes to the hind and he can use his hind. And he's got that Iberian crusty neck, so it's very easy for him to be behind the bit.
Right.
That's not like a stretch, like he wants to be there.
Yeah.
But yeah, what we're going to do today is mostly work on accepting the contact.
Okay.
So starting on the ground, I don't know if you remember the jaw flexions at all, because I know it's been a long time since we worked together.
Yeah.
So go ahead, take the rein. And then you can also put your thumb in the bit.
Okay.
Yeah, on both sides.
Okay.
And then just do a steady upwards pressure towards his ears until he gives the mouth. So that means he starts licking and chewing and he relaxes the jaw. And then as soon as he does that, just this first time, just give completely. Good boy. And he actually lifted for you there really quite well.
Okay.
So now, pick the bit up again. Sorry, my words are jumbling. This is like the very end of the day. So. That's good. Okay. So then now keep him up, and this time we're going to do a little bit of bend.
Sorry, buddy. Okay, we're coming back up.
But you're not getting nearly so much fussiness as I did at the beginning with this. He was really tossing his head and pushing into me.
Okay.
So he seems to be settling with it a little bit.
Okay.
And this is a good position for him. When we're talking about him being high at the pole and having an open throat latch, by no means am I suggesting he run around like a racehorse with his nose sticking straight out.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? This is a nice position. Okay, now step to your right and bring him with you using your lifting action on your right hand. Good boy. And then you control the amount of bend, not him. Good. And he stayed the same height.
Okay.
And he's light, right?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent. So now bring him back straight using your left hand. Good. And then we just check in. And every position we check in. Is he the same height? Yes, he is.
Mm-hmm.
Is he light? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So now bend him to the left. Your left anyway, his right. Good. And just stay there with him a minute until he settles. Do you remember what demi-array is? So demi-array is French term. Yeah, it's a vibration on the rein. So you're not like jerking him or anything like that, but it's like a light bum bum bum. Yeah. So if he gets heavy,
okay.
If he's leaning on you and he's a lot stronger than you, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you guys go head to head, you're going to lose.
Right.
So that demi-array says, hey, you can't lean on me. I'm not going to hold you up. Keep him in the bend. Good. And then relax. Is he staying with you?
Uh-huh.
That's a better bend than you had a second ago. Keep him the same height? Yeah. Keep him with you.
Back there. Is that good? Right there?
Yeah, bring him back straight now. Using your right hand. Up, up, up.
When he's just releasing tension like that, we just let him?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and you can tell there's a difference between when he's just doing some mouth work and like you said, releasing some tension in his jaw, and when he's like, I'm just gaping my mouth and pulling on you. Like there's a big difference there. So yeah, definitely. Good. So this is a really nice position. If you were riding him walk, trot, canter in this position, that would be great. His pole's the highest point, and his throat latch is open.
Okay.
He's not curling up behind the vertical. So this is like our goal position for this level. I'm not saying that in the future you can't ask for pole flexion and all of those things and ask him to be round. Absolutely. But he's doing it too much now where he's curling up. So we need to correct that before you could move on to asking him to be round. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So I think if you stuck with that on the ground, it would help you a lot. We do it from the side as well. He did a lot better. If you want to try that one, it was much better when you're outside of the bend. And the reason why, I don't know if you remember when I was doing it.
The bend would be going that way.
Right. So if you remember when I was doing it, I did ask him to bend towards me, but then he was tilting too much. He was tilting the nose. So if you're on the outside of the bend, you can control that tilt. Because what we don't want is rotation. We don't want him rotating where his nose is going in and his ears are going the opposite direction.
Okay.
We want to bend where his whole head is staying straight. So go ahead and take your right rein over his withers. And then your hand can drop down on the shoulder. Your reins are plenty long enough.
Okay, like over here?
And then turn your hand over this way will be a little bit better.
Okay.
There you go. And then you can hold the bit here. So go ahead and put your fingers through the bit. This way. Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
And then we're just going to put that in your thumb.
Okay.
Perfect. Okay, so now from here, you are still going to, hold on. Stay up. You're going to walk with him.
Okay.
Over a little bit. So pull down on your right hand because it's going over the withers. And then this hand is going to keep the same height. So he lowered just a smidge. So bump him up just a little demi-array. And you're going to also control that tilting. So see how he's wanting to tilt the nose? There. Okay, that's better. Up a little bit. Yeah. And if he's really heavy on you, of course you would do demi-array on both reins. But if you're just correcting that tilting, you'd use this rein.
Okay.
That looks good. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, he's really nice and straight.
Okay.
So you can release and praise him and then go to the other side of him. So if you did this from the outside of the bend and practiced it where he was comfortable in that position, then you would be able to start asking him on the inside of the bend. But today that was I worked on it a little bit, but it was a little too hard for him. And then your left hand can come down and walk with him. There you go. And he looks like he stayed the same height. Is he light?
Yeah.
This side was definitely way easier.
Yeah, he's just there.
Yeah. All right. Release and praise him. He looks nice. So before you get on, do you have any questions about this? Because you can definitely work with this. Even if you don't really have time to ride or it's too hot or whatever, you could just throw his bridle on and just do this for 5 or 10 minutes. It would help him a lot.
Okay.
All right. Go ahead and get on. So now we're going to do the jaw flexions. What we did on the ground, we're going to do exactly the same under saddle. So for starters, just ask for his mouth. So just a steady upwards pressure. And right now he's pulling on you. He was licking and chewing, but he was also pulling. There you go. So now is he light? Mm-hmm. And he gave the mouth for a second. Go ahead and ask again. And it's just a steady pressure. We want him to lick and chew. Yeah, there. Now release. Good boy. Good. And when you're riding, you have a really lovely position where you have a really straight line from your elbow to the bit. But in Legerete, we want that. That's the goal, but that's the ends, not the means. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So it's definitely not our goal to ride around with our arms up in the air. Okay, that's not the goal. The goal is your lovely position that you had. But right now, in the early stages of training, he needs help to come up in the front. So you have to lift so you can keep him more higher and open. But then as he's more accepting of the contact and he understands where his position should be and he's not curling up and coming behind the bit, then you can go down into that position and have a nice contact with him and have him be round. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So now we're going to ask him to bend to the left. Maximum would be 90 degrees, but I don't think we're going to do that with him. That's too much. Maybe try 45 degrees. And you just do a lift on that rein, and then you can adjust and lower your hand down on the rein. So you can use your other hand to help you. There you go. Good boy. And just hold and wait for him to settle. Good. Does he feel light? Okay. Let that rein slide, and then right rein's going to lift, and then adjust and lower your hand down on the rein. Demi-array both reins because he lowered quite a bit. Yes, good correction. How does he feel?
Fussy right now.
So just wait for him to settle.
Okay.
Maybe ask him just a little higher. Yes, good boy.
Good.
Okay.
Good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good boy. So when you go and walk, I want you right away to think about him being forward in walk. Right from the beginning, for me, he felt lazy in walk. And I think because I got after him so much to be in front of my leg in walk and trot, then when I asked him for canter, it wasn't even a question because the whole time I'd already been saying, be in front of my leg, you know? Okay. So it's hard to keep your leg off of him because he is really quite round under you. So your leg kind of just almost naturally squeezes him just sitting on him. Right. But try your best to not bump him along with your leg all the time and use your leg to keep him going. Okay. When you use your leg, there should be a change. Okay. Like I'm going from walk to trot, or I'm going from a collected walk to a lengthened walk, whatever. Like there needs to be a big change. Not just I'm pedaling you around. Yeah, exactly. Okay. Yeah. So if you've asked him to maintain, we're just going to go in working walk. We want some activity, we're going to go somewhere. And when he gets lazy and starts dragging his feet, don't bump him along with your leg because then he just really gets dulled to your leg. So tap him on with the whip, kind of like what you saw me doing, and push him back up. And it's not a big deal. If he mistakes it and goes into trot for a second, don't worry about it. Just be like, thanks, but no thanks. We're just walking. But right idea, And
whip on the shoulder, whip behind.
So whip behind your leg.
Behind my leg.
Yes, in this region here. Because that's what you're correcting. You're correcting the fact that you didn't listen to my leg.
Right. Okay.
So, yeah. Okay, so contact means that you feel the weight of the bit. You feel his mouth with supple reins. So you're not pulling on him. You're not asking him to do anything. You're just holding hands with him, okay? That's the same amount of pressure you should feel as if you were walking around the mall holding hands with your husband. That's what it should feel like. Any more than that and he's heavy on you, you can dummy your rein, bump him up. If you're feeling a lot of inconsistency in the contact, which is what I was experiencing with him, where it was really hard for me to follow him, he was kind of fussy with it, you just really try your best to stay with him and find that contact and make sure that he knows that he can't escape it. Does that make sense? Like you just kind of keep on it.
Okay.
So go ahead, just on the rail, in walk, and we want a good walk, and we want to be able to have him accept the contact and not be fussy and trying to go behind the bit. And for very starters with you, I'm not too concerned where he puts his head just yet. I just want you to find some contact. But if he's coming behind the vertical too much where he's behind the bit, you will probably have to ask him to be higher because otherwise he's escaping that contact. Does that make sense? So I'm not really so much concerned about him having a specific height or a specific headset. It just is you being able to keep the contact and him not escaping behind it.
How is that right there?
That's good. Okay. And it looks like a pretty good walk, too.
Yes.
So see if you can actually drop your upper arm down by your side more so your elbows are big. Yeah, that's good. And you can still lift your hands like that. But then you can lift a bit from the elbow. There you go. So do you feel like you're able to have some good moments of consistent contact, or does it still feel kind of iffy?
No, I feel contact.
Good.
Is he rounding his head, neck, pole too much?
Well, right here he's fine. Okay. There a little bit. So you want to see that crown piece on the bridle is the highest point. That his neck goes up to that. If you see that dropping below his mane at all, then you know you need to bring him up. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so go ahead and change directions, however it's convenient for you. We'll see you on the other side. And try not to use your legs for steering him because he's already kind of dulled to the leg a bit anyway. Okay. And so I think it just is going to make it worse. And he needs to be a bit more in between your reins. That was also kind of what I was referring to when I was talking about really wanting to do shoulder control, is that he doesn't always really stay between your aids very well. Good. Yeah, that was a good correction. This is a nice frame for him to work in. But definitely we don't want him any lower. And don't be afraid to tap him on at any point. Because he needs to be responsible for maintaining the gait that you put him in, not you. You're not doing the work pedaling him along all the time. You might as well get a bicycle if that's how it's going to be, right? A little higher? Yeah. Yep, good. And you should hopefully feel that when you have him in a more active walk and he's open through the throat latch and his pole is high, he should feel like he's a little bit lighter in the front and is stepping up better and not just better balance overall. You know what I mean?
Definitely feels lighter on my leg already.
Good. Yeah, that's exhausting.
Using too much leg just out of habit.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yep. And then make sure you have contact. You don't want to let there be a big loop in your rein. You should feel his mouth. Good. Okay, you want to try taking it into trot? So tighten your reins a bit. Keep your hands above his mouth. And see if you can find some nice, consistent contact. And then you also have to make sure, because you're posting, that your shoulder and your elbow joint can absorb the movement of you going up and down, right? You don't want your hands going up and down with you posting. Your hand should be steady on him. Lift your hands a little bit. Oh, I think we are on a potty break. So tighten your reins a bit, lift your hands, and keep your hands like hip distance apart. Yeah. Good. Now this is a nice frame for him. And it gives him much more mobility in the shoulder. That's the words I was looking for earlier. Up a little. How does the contact feel?
It feels good when I can stay quiet with my hands.
Yeah.
I'm kind of struggling with that right now.
So tighten your reins just a little bit more and think about being really fluid in your shoulder joint and your elbow joint. So that way your hands aren't going up and down with you. Close your fingers. And lift your hands just a smidge. Keep your hands hip distance apart. His trot looks pretty active, though. He doesn't look too lazy to me, huh?
Right.
Keep him up. Don't let him come behind the vertical. Good. Again, you will be able to ask him to be round and flexible in the future. But right now, he's using that to evade the contact. So right now, we're going to tell him, no, you can't do that. Up. Good. How's that feel? Good. Okay, bring him down to walk for a second. Make sure he stays up. And anytime if you feel like he's heavy on you or pulling on you, you do that demi-array, the vibration on the rein. Good corrections. Excellent. Yeah, and this is a good position and a good walk. Just make sure you've got that following hand as his head is moving, your hands are moving with him, and try not to allow there to be any slack in the reins. You can feel the bit, just like you're holding hands with him. Good correction. And he gets a little fussy with it because he thinks that that's the answer. You know what I mean? In the past, it's given him peace to be there. So he thinks that's what he's supposed to do. So right now, we've totally turned his world upside down, and so he's a little fussy about it. But we don't worry about it. We just get him used to a different way, that he's not going to be allowed to be behind the bit anymore, that evasion isn't going to work. We want him to be up and open. Good. How does he feel now? Okay, so gradually let your reins slide. That way he can just have a little stretch. And he was actually quite good at that. When I gave him the reins, he really wanted to stretch his neck down. Okay, pick your contact back up. Pick his head back up. And then ask him to hold. But hold that position. Don't throw your reins away the moment he stops. Good. Is he light?
Yes.
Now give the reins. Good. That's one mistake a lot of times that people make. They halt and they immediately throw the reins away. And so then the horse halts heavy on the forehand and they halt where they're pushing their nose down and stuff like bad habits like that. So we always, when we halt, we check the contact for a moment. And if the contact's still good, then we release. Okay, so we're just going to give him a breather for a minute, and then we'll see the other side. And go ahead and have him stand. Yeah. We just let him take just a little short break, and then we'll do trot on the other side.
Come a long way. Kind of bonded a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, other side. So before you walk off, pick up your contact. And then when you're happy with the contact in his position, then you can ask him and walk. And go ahead, change directions however is convenient. Keep that following hand, because when you're in walk, he has to bob his head a little bit, for that's the biomechanics of the horse's walk. Their head is kind of moving up and down, forward and back a little bit. So we don't want to hinder that at all. We want to follow his movement of his head with our hand. Yeah, get a little bit more activity from him. Keep on. So if you tap him to correct, don't stop tapping until you get the response. Does that make sense? Because if you tap him 3 or 4 times and then he didn't really do much of anything, and you stop tapping, even if it's only for 2 seconds, but then he'll learn to ignore it. Good. Okay, how does he feel there? Go ahead and send him in trot. Tighten your reins and keep a really clear contact. You should feel the bit in your hands. Good. Keep your hands hip distance apart. Little more activity. Don't let him curl up. Keep him open. And then try to find that nice contact. You don't want to have like where the reins is like a bungee cord snapping. Does that make sense? You want it to stay the same amount of weight in your reins the whole time. Remember to let your shoulders and elbows be nice and loose and relaxed and absorb that movement of you posting so your hands can stay still. Close your fingers. Bend your elbows a little bit and let your hands be maybe just a smidge higher so that way you stay above his mouth. Yeah. Because I didn't cover this at the beginning in the video because we've kind of discussed this before, but when we use backwards pressure on the bit, it's going to put pressure on over his tongue, right? And so that's why in Legerete we use lifting pressure because then it's just on the corner of his lips. How does that feel? That feels good right now. Yeah, he looks really nice. Good. His trot is improving as you're going on. Okay, relax him down to walk. And same thing like you did on the other side. When you come down to walk, it's an active walk. He stays in contact. He stays the same position. Just because you do a downward transition doesn't mean he gets to die out on you, right? Okay, shall we try canter? I believe the left was his better side, so to make it easier for you this time, we will go ahead and start on the left. So a couple of things. You had a tendency when you were asking him to canter before to kind of want to throw him into canter. And what I want you to think about instead is you pushing the buttons to ask him to canter, and then he takes you. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like if you think about like a jump, you don't throw your horse over the jump, right? The horse jumps and it takes you with it. And it's a common problem where people will kind of go, okay, canter, and kind of want to throw their horse into canter. But what's happening when you lose the contact, then you've thrown your contact away, you've kind of hung up the phone on it. Does that make sense? And so it would be better for you to sit down, or you can stay posting, actually. You can post right up until, just about almost the moment that they canter. I wouldn't let the bounciness of the trot get in your way. Does that make sense? If you need to post all the way up until the canter, do it. It's fine. But keep your hands in position and don't throw your hands forward where you're giving him a really long rein and leaving him just like out there on his own. So go ahead and trot. Get your good trot that we had a minute ago. How do you feel? Yeah, Yeah, he looks good to me. So your aids for canter, your outside leg is going to slide back. Your inside leg is forward at the girth. And then you squeeze, and he should go right into canter. Keep your elbows bent. Keep your hands where they are. And whenever you're ready, canter. Keep your elbows bent. Keep your hands back. Keep contact through your canter transition. Okay, bring him back to trot. You can tell me he's a good boy, but we're going to do it again a few times until you feel comfortable keeping a little bit better contact. It's not going to be perfect because he's still messy in his canter transition, but we're going to try it. So keep your elbows bent, keep your hands in position, and canter. Keep your elbows to your hips. And then you go into canter with contact instead of going into canter with a long floppy rein. Okay, trot. Because his canter itself isn't bad once he goes into it. Okay, so same thing again. I want you to try to feel the bit in your hands the whole time all the way through the transition. Whenever you're ready. Okay, and bring him down to trot. Actually, let's just try one more time, and this time I want you to tighten up your reins. Good, good, good. Keep that contact. Yeah. Okay, come down to trot. Now, there's your trot. No, it's a little quick. But he is open in the front. He's light in the front. You're getting some good suspension, and he has a lot of impulsion there, huh?
Yeah, and the contact felt nice.
Yes, yeah.
Even.
Yes. Okay, now watch him. He's trying to round up there a little bit. So for this level of his training, him trying to round like that is forbidden. Okay. Again, I'm not saying you're not going to ask for pole flexion in the future, but right now, it's forbidden. Okay, go ahead and bring him down to walk. And an active walk. He's still working. Sitting tall, keep your elbows to your hips. Good. And then a nice balanced halt. Hold your contact, wait and see. Is he light?